and welcome back to Patient Conversations with Leah. I'm Leah Phillips, one of the co-founders of Young Lung Cancer Initiative, and once again, I have my friend Cori here with me to talk a little bit about her cancer journey. She is a stage 4 ALK-positive cancer patient diagnosed at a young age, and she has actually been on a clinical trial for 9 years. So we talked a lot about her clinical trial, how she chose to do a clinical trial so early in her journey in our first episode. So this episode, I think we're going to talk about something a little bit different. She's even further down the road than I am. 10 years into her diagnosis, I'm 5 years. And a lot of times, as soon as you hit 5 years, people hear 5 years and think, oh, you're in remission or you're cured. And for those of us with these oncogene-driven cancers, that's really not terminology they'll really use as a cure or a remission. We'll just jump right in. And so I know in our last episode, you talked about the fact that 18 months into your original diagnosis of a stage 1B, you thought you were going to be cured by having a lobectomy, and that just wasn't the case. And it showed up 18 months later in your brain and in your chest. So maybe just tell the viewers how you felt when that happened.
So after my surgery, I was really anxious. I knew that 20% of people after their surgery that their cancer came back. But my doctor said, we caught it early. None of your lymph nodes had anything in them. You're cured. But I just had a really bad feeling. And sure enough, I was being monitored every 6 months. I would get my scans. So I didn't even have any symptoms that it was back. I was feeling fine. A year and a half later, my doctor was shocked. She was absolutely shocked. She didn't even think it was cancer. She thought maybe it was something else, like a lung infection or some type of autoimmune infection. When we finally did realize, and my doctors realized this is cancer, I was devastated because I thought I was cured. And even though I had been anxious about it, I have anxiety. Really thought that I had gone through something really hard and difficult, but I'd come through the other side of it. And I also knew the statistics for stage 4 lung cancer. I didn't have the benefit of shock of being diagnosed. I was a non-smoker, as many of us are. And I thought that only smoking caused lung cancer, as a lot of people do, right? We don't know. The first time around, that came with shock. And shock helps. There's a
Affects your brain a little bit, I think.
It does. There's a reason for it. And I didn't have that the second go around. I already knew all the statistics and I was just devastated. I was having panic attacks and I was severely depressed. And because my doctor told me if the medicine works for you, you could have maybe 2, 3, possibly 5 years. And that would be a really big hope. She didn't make it sound like I would get to 5 years. She said if it didn't work, I could be gone in 6 months to a year. A week before your 33rd birthday, that's devastating. It's devastating to be told that any time in your life, but especially when you're young. And was so depressed. I started my medication and it worked. And I still was so depressed. I couldn't get out of it. I was on my antidepressant medicine, which it did help. But there was this horrible hole in my chest that just wouldn't leave. And so probably 6 to 8 months in, I finally heard the word anticipatory grief. And I swear, I sat straight up in bed. I was like, that is what I have. This isn't depression. This isn't sadness. This is grief. Your grief doesn't go away when you lose something. When you lose someone, it's always there. And it feels very different. It's a deeper, more painful type of feeling. And I was grieving what I was losing, which was my career. And at the time, my boyfriend that I thought I was going to marry, and then eventually I moved back up to Redding. So I lost my life in Southern California. But then the anticipatory part was I was grieving not being here, thinking that I wouldn't be here in a couple of years, that I wouldn't get to get married and have kids and grow old. There's a massive to that. When I learned about anticipatory grief, I was Googling it and learning about it. And I found these brochures from some cancer society about it. And because everyone in my family was also experiencing anticipatory grief, right? They are really sad that I'm dying. That's the truth. And so I gave them all brochures of this is what we're going through. And there's tips in there on how to handle it because it's really different.
It is different.
And you have to handle it differently. So that helped me so much to realize that. And a big part of it was they said to reach out to other people like you and get into community. And so I started looking online and I found a Facebook group called the ALK Positive Facebook group. And there were 500 people in it. And I joined it and they were all just like me. They were terrified. They didn't know how much time they had. Most of them, the medicine was working for, but sometimes the medicine would work and then stop working quickly. And we all just started supporting each other and learning.
100% agree. I'm sitting here listening to you say these things, exactly what I felt. I was just 43 when it happened, right? And I tried to tell people, and I didn't know that term either. And I kept saying, I feel like I'm grieving a death, not my own death necessarily, like I'm dying, as much as it was every time I look at my kids. Am I going to be there for this? I'm going to be there for that. How can they be without their mom? How is this going to work? How's my husband going to do this if I'm not here? And I was I don't know about you, but I felt very protective of having to act like I was okay.
Yes.
To not cause my parents and my kids and my friends and my husband and my siblings that same grief, because that's exactly what it is. And even now to this day, there's still some of that. 100% believe, my husband and I talk about it, that this is a diagnosis for the entire family, really for anyone who loves you, is in your tight circle. And although it is, there's still something that's different for everybody else. Like, as the person that's actually the one that's living it, don't go a day forgetting that I have lung cancer, because every day I take a drug that reminds me I'm taking this for a reason. Whereas even the closest people to me, they can get a day maybe without thinking about it, or 10 hours, or a night when they go to bed. Whereas it's just a persistent grief of something I've never felt before.
Yes, right? Absolutely.
And then I finally connected with a friend who happened to be ALK positive. We had mutual friends. She was 13 years younger than I am. She was diagnosed at 29 and passed away at, well, she was almost 30, passed away at 32, 2 years later. I was with her not even 8 hours before she passed away in the hospital. That was my first loss of someone who was, yes, I have a different genetic driver, but we're all the same in a way.
Yes.
And we left there, and I said to my husband, I said, that's the end, isn't it? And he goes, I'm sorry, I really think it is. And I talk about a whole nother realm of grief, watching someone pass away of what is more than likely. And at the time they were telling me 6 to 12 months. Then it was, okay, 2 years. Then after I had radiation a year later, hopefully 5 years. And you're looking at this person who was diagnosed 6 months prior to you and thinking, this is my reality.
Yep. The grief is crazy. And that's something, catch 22, maybe that's the right phrase for it, where it's the community has brought me so much peace and comfort being involved with it, and being able to meet other people just like me. No one can understand what you're going through except for other people who are literally going through it. And
Yes.
even my family can't understand what I feel and what I go through. And so it's this really powerful connection, and it is so healing. And then you start to lose them from the same disease you'll die from. That's messed up. It really is.
100%.
There's not anyone else in my life that I can think of that goes through anything like that they are losing their friends. And I've lost a lot. I've lost dozens of friends. And I actually had to start to pull away for a while
Right.
from the community, because I am lucky to be a long-term survivor, but that also means that you lose a lot of people. And it became too painful. It became too much. And so it's really difficult, because it's this amazing thing in your life that is so wonderful.
And so needed.
Yes, and so needed, but there's a really part to it. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because people don't talk about that. And that's a whole
No,
other level of grief.
my friend Elizabeth and I, we lived 10 minutes away from each other. I was at her house all the time helping with her little girls. And it wasn't just somebody, they had people speak at her funeral at the end, just anybody who wanted to. And I wasn't going to say anything. And people were looking at me. Certain people were like, are you going to say anything? And I remember standing up there. I said, I probably may have known Elizabeth less time than the rest of you, but I know her in a different way, because this is what we share. I don't even know that I was really thinking that. It just came out. And that might be the one, I have a few of those people that are lung cancer patients that I've met, but she was different because we were together so often. I'm still close to her husband, and he's a dear friend, and just watching all that was so hard. And like you said, you have to pull back. And there was a time that I stopped looking at the EGFR resistors and the Tagrisso board, because I couldn't be on those Facebook groups. It was like way too upsetting, way too much. That's kind of why I feel like Young Lung Cancer Initiative has been a gift, not only to myself, but a lot of people, because our age group demographic is different than others. I still will admit that I can't go on to certain patient groups every day or on a regular basis. I'll check in, or if somebody wants to ask me a question and they tag me, I'll go in and answer it, but I can't pour through that. And I don't know how you feel, if that's the same for you or not.
I'm actually glad to hear you say that, because I felt guilty. I felt really guilty, especially as a long-term survivor. It's my job to help and support these people, right? We want to give back. Other people gave so much to us when we were those people. And so I want to give back. And I was feeling really guilty. But mental health is really important for everyone, but especially cancer patients. And it's not talked about enough, because our physical health takes over our lives. Being sick really is a full-time job, and you have to manage so much. It's mental health kind of gets put by the wayside, but it's so important. And I love what you said earlier about how you feel like you have to be strong for everyone else. And I think we all do that, probably would be my guess. A lot of us, I definitely do that and really did that, especially in the beginning. I couldn't show my grief because it would make them grieve more because they're sad that I'm sad. So
Right.
I would try to be really strong and always positive, and that also is exhausting. That's
It is.
really difficult on the cancer patient. So I tried the support group thing, did not work. And there were some that were okay, but even I went to a young person support group and the majority of them had breast cancer. And then we would all go around the room and they're all early stages. And then they get to me. And I was stage 1 who went to stage 4. I'm the worst nightmare. And the whole room would just go quiet and everyone would just stare at me. And I'm like, this is so awkward. It's not that I wasn't welcome there. It's just that was their greatest fear. And I couldn't talk about the same things that they talked about. And so eventually I actually went out and found a therapist who was experienced in grief and cancer patients. And that has really helped me because that's someone that I don't have to be strong around.
Right.
I can talk about my fears, and it helps so much to have that person that I do not have to do that for.
I agree.
It's exhausting. I would say it's also important.
I agree. Mental health is a huge part of this. My experience has been when somebody new finds out that I have stage 4 lung cancer, and it's like dropping a bomb on them. And then they're like, what? And they have all these questions, which is great. I love answering them. I love being able to talk about it. But there's also this level of everybody's shocked because I don't look sick. And so day to day, that saying, you never know what someone's carrying or what they're going through, it's totally true. Because if you look at the two of us, we look like typical, healthy, middle-aged women. That's what we are.
Yep.
On the outside. But on the inside, our body's fighting a big fight and our minds are carrying a heavy weight, our emotions. I always tell people my 2 pieces of advice: find a hospital, like you said, it's a teaching hospital, and get a therapist. Those are my 2 big ones.
Yes.
Well, enough with our sadness here. We're going to wrap our grief up. No, I'm just kidding. I think that this has been amazing. I think this will be good for people to hear that even 5 years, 9 years, you're still having to deal with this. This is a work in progress. This is not something like, well, I've made it to 3 years. I'm still on the same drug. Well, life is great. It is still just bringing to light that this is going to be an ongoing process. And that's okay. It's going to be.
Grief doesn't go away. If you lose your parent, you never stop grieving them. And if you're going to lose your life early, you never stop grieving that.
Right.
Even if you get to live a long time.
Yes.
Grief is different than sadness. And I think that's important for people to realize.
I 100% agree with you. Well, thank you again for being here today. And like I told you guys earlier, this is just episode 2 of a 3-part series. So we are going to have Cori back with us next time. And we're going to talk a little bit about, since she's been on this journey for so long, and there's so many things that happen in that 30 to 40 year age range of with jobs and relationships and all the dating. We're going to talk about some of how she's handled some of these big life milestones while carrying this disease with her. So thank you again, Cori, for being here. And the rest of you watching, please like and follow so you don't miss the next episode. And then you could easily find the first episode. Thank you.